boys and girls. I still don't have a good name for our productions here. We'll do Sullivan's Corona case files today. I don't know. Hopefully you had a good dot picture today. Erin made hers into
or
a
line robot. Or line.
That's right. Or line picture. Erin chose a dot and made it into a robot. I have a fun activity for us today, so I hope you enjoy this one. This one is a little bit of a break from writing. I feel like we've been doing a lot of writing lately. The book that we're going to read today is Rosie Revere, Engineer. And if you're looking for a little side project, the book is based off of Rosie the Riveter, who was a famous historical woman during the time of World War II. She actually was a really cool lady. Go ahead.
She's literally included in this.
She is. She is Aunt Rosie in this book. Tell us a little bit about Rosie Revere, or Rosie the Riveter.
I've actually done research on her.
So share some facts.
Rosie the Riveter had to take the place of a man's job because men used to do the riveting job, but they all had to go to war, so she had to take their place, and that's how she got into the riveting business.
And back a long, long time ago, women didn't do some of the jobs that men did. Whereas now we're so much smarter. We know that girls can do anything boys can do, and boys can do anything girls can do. And we share jobs and roles and responsibilities. But back a long, long time ago, ladies typically didn't work on airplanes or work on cars or mechanics or construction. That sort of job was left for men. But when all the men went off to war, the ladies had to jump into some of those other jobs, and Rosie the Riveter was one of those ladies. Yep. So this time we're going to be talking about her younger niece, Rosie Revere, Engineer. This is the story of Rosie Revere, who dreamed of becoming a great engineer. In Lila Greer's classroom at Blue River Creek, young Rosie sat shyly, not daring to speak.
And her
trying to see if you can see Rosie. She's right here.
Her aunt
she always has that side swoop of blonde hair covering her eye.
Her aunt actually has created airplanes.
She helped to build them, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. But when no one saw her, she peeked in the trash for treasures to add to her engineer stash. And late at night, Rosie rolled up her sleeves and built in her hideaway under the eaves. So she was constantly looking for different scraps of things to make into her inventions. Alone in her attic, the moon high above, dear Rosie made gadgets and gizmos she loved. And when she grew sleepy, she hid her machines far under the bed where they'd never be seen. Here's how many machines she made. Now I'm going to give you a close-up.
And also all her parts.
Machines and parts.
She has so many. And old toys.
That she turned into and used those as materials, right?
Even like a baby head? Yeah.
When Rosie was young, she had not been so shy. She worked with her hair swooping over one eye. And made fine inventions for uncles and aunts, a hot dog dispenser and helium pants.
Helium pants is that guy who's flying?
Yep, because helium is a gas that's lighter than air, so it causes things to float. So that guy's wearing his helium pants, and one shoe fell off.
And the hot dog dispenser, you can make hot dogs in really fast. And one reason why she put in a rope
so that it doesn't fly away, right?
Yeah.
The uncle she loved most was a zookeeper Fred. She made him a hat to keep snakes off his head. From parts of a fan and some cheddar cheese spray, which everyone knows keeps the pythons away.
Is that true?
So there is her invention of the hat that keeps snakes off his head.
Yeah. Cheddar cheese spray keeps pythons away.
Sure. And when it was finished, young Rosie was proud But Fred slapped his knee and he chuckled out loud. He laughed till he wheezed and his eyes filled with tears, all to the horror of Rosie Revere. Stood there embarrassed, perplexed, and dismayed. She looked at the cheese hat and then looked away. I love it, Fred hooted. Oh, I truly do. But Rosie Revere knew that could not be true. She stuck that cheese hat on the back of her shelf, and after that day she kept her dreams to herself. She thought her uncle was making fun of her invention and laughing at her. Made her feel bad, made her guess some of her decisions, made her feel a little bit foolish.
When he actually was laughing that she made that.
She was able to make something like that?
Yeah.
And that's how it went until one autumn day, her oldest relation showed up for a stay. Her great-great-aunt Rose was a true dynamo who worked on building airplanes a long time ago. That's Rosie the Riveter.
Yep.
She told Rosie tales of things she had done and goals she had checked off her list one by one. She gave a sad smile and looked at the sky. The only thrill left on my list is to fly. But time never lingers as long as it seems. I'll chalk that one up to old lady dreams. So at the top is a picture of Rosie the Riveter when she was younger. And now here she is as her great-great-aunt.
And that's one of the airplanes she's building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That night, as Rosie laid wide-eyed in bed, a daring idea crept into her head. Could she build a gizmo to help her aunt fly? She looked at the cheese hat and said, "Oh, not I." But questions are tricky, and some hold on tight. And this one kept Rosie awake through the night. So when dawn approached and red streaks lit the sky, young Rosie knew just how to make her aunt fly. That question was sticky, and it got caught in her brain. And she couldn't sleep because she wanted to try out her new plan. She worked and she worked till the day was half gone, then hauled her cheese copter out onto the lawn to give her invention a test just to see the ridiculous flop it might turn out to be. So there she is hauling. It's big and covered up, but there's her big invention that she's hauling out onto the lawn. Strapped into the cockpit, she flipped on the switch. The hella cheese copter sputtered and twitched. It floated a moment and whirled round and round, then it froze for a heartbeat and it crashed to the ground.
And then the head of the baby is...
Yeah, you'll notice she used some of her toys and materials. Erin always gets stuck on the fact that there's a head of a baby that she uses as one of her controllers.
It's a baby doll.
Yeah. Not a real baby. When Rosie heard laughter and turned round to see... Oh no, laughter again, poor Rosie. The old woman laughing and slapping her knee. She laughed till she wheezed and her eyes filled with tears, all to the horror of Rosie Revere, who thought, "Oh no, never, not ever again will I try to build something to sputter or spin or build a new lever, a switch, or a gear, and never will I be a great engineer." Oh, so there's the aunt laughing, and then zoom in on poor Rosie's little face.
And she used the cheese hat for it, too.
She turned round to leave, but that great-great-aunt Rose grabbed hold of young Rosie and pulled her in close and hugged her and kissed her and started to cry. "You did it! Hooray! It was the perfect first try. This great flop is over. It's time for the next." Young Rosie was baffled, embarrassed, perplexed. "I failed," said dear Rosie. "It's just made of trash. Didn't you see it? The cheese copter crashed." "Yes," said her great aunt. "It crashed, that is true. But first it did just what it needed to do. Before it crashed, Rosie, before that, it flew." So the aunt's looking at it from a different perspective. Going back to last week when we talked about perspectives, the aunt's like, yeah, it failed, but before it failed, it first flew. She's focusing on the positive. "Your brilliant first flop was a raging success. Come on, let's get busy and on to the next. She handed a notebook to Rosie Revere, who smiled at her aunt as it all became clear. Life might have its failures, but this was not it. The only true failure can come if you quit. So look at those ideas now that are in her brain. When something doesn't work out, it just means that you need to learn from that experience. They worked till the sun sneaked away to its bed. Aunt Rosie tied her headscarf around Rosie's head and sent her to sleep with a smile ear to ear to dream the bold dreams of a great engineer.
They're building a bunk bed.
I think they're still working on making the flying machine. Rosie the Riveter was on an ad during the war way back when, and it was "We Can Do It" was the theme, and so they included that in this book as well. At Blue River Creek, all the kids in grade 2 built gizmos and gadgets and doohickeys too. With each perfect failure, they all stand and cheer, but none quite as loudly as Rosie Revere. So there's all of her classmates. She inspired everybody to be a great inventor and try new things.
Except Piggy, Peck, and Ada.
Well, there are more books to this series. Maybe I'll include them in some of our lessons. But the big thing, the big message that I think Rosie is trying to...
and there's a picture of the finished copter at the end.
There's the finished copter. Thanks, Max.
Ada Twist.
Yep, there. Find them, Erin. But the big message that I think Rosie's really trying to teach us is that...
Piggy Peck.
Yep, there's the other two that we have. That when you try, a lot of times you might fail. That first try, that second try, that third try, it might not be perfect. But the important thing is how you handle those attempts and those tries. When you fail, do you get mad and get upset and throw things down and say, I'll never get it, I'll never learn? Or do you say, hey, man, I learned something, now I have to try it in a different way. That's called having a growth mindset. I know that if I keep trying my hardest and look at it from another way, I'm probably going to be able to figure this out. So that leads us into our next challenge. I think this is a fun one. I want you to get 3 pieces of paper. And adults, you're going to have to help with this one a little bit. I want you to make 3 different paper airplanes. Okay? You can look up on the internet ways to fold the paper airplanes. Look up on a phone or a tablet.
Or if you have a paper airplane set.
Yeah, Augie has a book that shows him how to fold different paper airplanes. You get to make 3 different paper airplanes. You can fold them, decorate them, draw them however you would like. When you're done with those 3 paper airplanes, you get to fly each one of those. What I'd like you to do is make a little starting mark line on your floor, and then fly those airplanes. The next thing I want you to do is measure how far each airplane flew. Figure out which airplane was the most successful in the airplane paper making, I don't know, in the paper airplane making party, okay?
Even if it flies, you could put tape where it landed.
That's a great idea. You can work that out in your house and whatever your parents are comfortable with. You can measure it using a tape measure if you have one of those. You can measure it using your feet, heel to toe, heel to toe. You can measure it using blocks or cubes. Whatever you have to measure is what you're going to measure with. It can be standard measurements, standard meaning something that we all use, inches, feet, rulers, tape measures, things like that. Or it could be non-standard measurement, which means then you use your paper clips, then you use your blocks. How many pencils long did my airplanes fly? So you get to test out all 3 airplanes, measure how far they flew, where did you throw them from, that's your starting point, to wherever they landed. And then I want you to compare those numbers. Which plane flew the longest or the farthest? Which plane flew the shortest or the smallest distance? Okay? Little bit of measurement, a little bit of folding, fine motor. We haven't done anything fine motor besides writing in a while, and you guys know those little finger muscles need a workout. So folding that paper. If you're struggling, parents, you can always draw a line where they're supposed to fold on the piece of paper. That might be helpful. And really work on that creasing with those little finger muscles. Get those airplanes made, make them fancy. I'd love to see pictures. And I'll see you guys back tomorrow. Bye, guys.
Bye.